Hi, thanks for being here. Today I'm going to do a little harmonica. It is literally one of my favorites. So for the sound today, we're going to do a little harmonica. Okay, so a little side note about harmonicas. If you don't know, they are very good for people who have trouble with breath stuff. It's supposed to help with breathing. Even people who have been known to have like asthma and stuff like that, it's supposed to help them. You can check that out. Just a little side note. Today on the Gregorian calendar is January 6th. So, it's pretty interesting because on the 9-day calendar, it is Pluto. It'll be the last day of the 12 months of the 9-day moon calendar. And then, 12 months. And so we'll have one more month, which will end supposedly on around February 2nd. Oh, no. February 10th. Is that right? 1, 2, 3. With days out. Yeah. I don't know. It feels a little long. So I'll have to see where I'm at with my calendar. But 1, 2. Oh yeah, it should. Okay, because the Lunar New Year is February 10th, not February 2nd. I've been saying February 2nd for a long time. Bringing it back to today. So today is a Saturn's day on the Gregorian calendar. It's the 6th. But on the 9-day calendar, it is Pluto, which is appropriate because Pluto is a big deal. We are having a lot of storms, which to me relates to Pluto and the relation to Oya. And somebody sent me this information this morning, which I think is just so cool, which is that, okay, so I'm one of those people that has not been very good about like getting Christmas presents to people right at Christmas. I tend to celebrate Yule and will give around people who are close and nearby around Yule. And I always, each year I want to be better prepared so that people get gifts on time. I don't mind getting gifts late. I think it's kind of cool. I think it's kind of fun. Because it's kind of after all the excitement and then you still get gifts. I think that's just cool, personally. However, I know how that looks outside and it can be a little flaky. Yet, today in Ireland, okay? In Ireland, it is an old tradition that women get a second Christmas. Today is that day. It is called Nollaig na Mabon, Women's Christmas, celebrated January 6th. It is an old custom that recognizes how much physical and emotional labor women do during Christmas to make Christmas so special and the season so special. Traditionally, it would be a day where the men and boys take on the home tasks and cooking so women could go relax with their friends and eat leftover Christmas treats together which I think is super sweet. And it is also a day for political organizing for women's rights. And certain restaurants around the area will plan brunches specifically for the women on today. So I thought that was kind of cool, because not only am I doing this video today to share with you all, but also just to say that maybe that's my Irish side. just kidding, but also just saying. But it's something to be recognized, as there is a whole culture that recognizes what women do. And this day, I mean, it should be a little longer, considering that women usually are doing like the whole month of December, and then even afterwards. One day is nice. One day is nice. Maybe it could be a week long also, just because she does so much. Okay, so I wanted to mention the 9-day calendar. So today would be the last day on the 9-day calendar, and then starting tomorrow, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. Tuesday being the first day of the new moon. The 9th, 10th, and 11th will be the 3 days of the new moon, or the 3 nights of the new moon of January. Okay, so we are slowly moving into the year. So I wanted to share that part with you. Mainly today, I am bringing up, because I have so many views from a video I did a while back ago, where I spoke a little bit about this book, Atlas of the Bible, which is one of my family members had it, and they were getting rid of it. So I happily adopted it into the plethora of books that I could spend more time reading. So I wanted to show you some things, because that was 4 years ago, and I've probably looked at this book maybe 3 or 4 times since then. So I'm going to show you the map that they have in the front. Okay, so if you've watched a lot of my videos, you know, and then I've shared videos of other people on YouTube that talk about we're the indigenous people. America is the old world. America is where the Bible actually took place. And when I started reading this yesterday, I was like, wait a minute. But anyhow, because I feel like there are some, I feel like they're telling us, like, hey, we've used specific words and specific ways to redirect people. Okay, so we'll get there in a second. So I want to show you the map first. So this is upright, and then I'll show you it upside down, and how I had been like, wait a minute. Okay, so here's it upright. So we have, as you can see, Saudi Arabia, and then you have the Caspian Sea, Armenia, Turkey, the Mediterranean Sea, Egypt over here, Saudi Arabia, okay? So I'm just going to hold it in place for a moment and get a good look at it. I'm going to turn it upside down. So what I see is what looks like part of wait, is that right? Yeah. This looks like what it could be part of the United States, specifically the Gulf of Mexico area, or this could be like the Gulf of Mexico area, And then this is more like the top of the United States. When I first looked at it, because this part down here, or this part down here, looks like the Gulf of Mexico, but it looks like it could be pieces of the United States specifically. Okay. And that was just me being weird, being like, hey, this is kind of interesting. Okay, so in this book, I had mentioned it before. In this book, it talks about Biblos, which is where supposedly we get the name of Bible. But I've been doing videos, and other people have been doing videos where we're talking about like what we see here and what we see on the other side of the world, and like it doesn't match to the timelines they're telling us, which will bring me back to the 9-day calendar. Hopefully I won't forget to talk about 13 days of the Julian calendar before I get off. But speaking about how the calendar must have changed. So in this book, it talks about how they come to write a map for the Bible. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you some of the pictures. Okay, here's a picture. Wandering Armenians. You can't really see what they look like. It's supposed to be older. And the caption says, nomads with donkey and flock at watering place. The western fringe of Syro-Arabian steppes. Somewhat, unless you live there, I think it's somewhat elusive. For a century, water has been the key. Generations to journey. Okay. I'll show you some other pictures. Some of the ruins is what I wanted to show you, because some of the ruins there look newer to the ruins here and temples here. So here's some pictures. Of course, this is Egypt. Okay. And let's see. There's another one I wanted to show you all. More in the beginning. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to read parts of the technique of biblical geography, what it says in here, and yeah, it just, okay. So I find this photo, it's black and white, whoa, come on back, to look very similar to California coast. And some of these, so here's some ruins. Okay. They don't look as sophisticated as the ruins we will see here. So, in this, where am I? 15 minutes in? Yeah. Bear with me. Sometimes reading out books is, anyhow. I found this, the technique of biblical geography. First paragraph. In order to produce an historical atlas of a region, it might appear sufficient to give a competent scholar some such order as, we are sending you as many maps as there are periods in history of the country. Please indicate on each of these maps the places and frontiers which play a part in the corresponding period. For a country of Western Europe, the task is relatively easy, but this does not apply to the ancient Near East in general, nor to Palestine in particular. In this region, the difficulties facing such an enterprise multiply to an alarming degree. and specialized knowledge of many kinds must be pressed into service if a satisfactory result is to be achieved. What? I found that first paragraph basically saying we've pieced this together as best we can, but for the most part, it's very difficult. Anyone who obtains a detailed map of present-day Palestine in order to look up the places he meets in his Bible will be disappointed. No doubt he at once locates a few well-known cities such as Jerusalem, Bethlehem, Hebron, or Jericho, but among the hundreds of other names, hardly one recalls any episode in the Old or New Testament. If he buys a biblical atlas, he finds, on the contrary, nothing shown on the maps but names mentioned in the scriptures, and all the difficulties disappear. For as long, at least, as he has no occasion to compare his new atlas with a work of the same kind by a different author. Should he make such a comparison, he is astonished to find that in different atlases the same town may appear in different parts of Palestine and is sometimes followed by a question mark. These difficulties are due to the fact that the majority of the town and villages of the Bible have been transformed into unrecognizable heaps of ruins, and that their identification calls for a special technique. The earliest inhabitants of Palestine, with its lack of water, it would hardly ever rain between April and October, which sounds like California to me, Southern California, preferred to settle in the vicinity of the springs, and there were, moreover, other factors which influenced the choice of a site for towns, such as good strategic position or the existence of natural lines of communication. For the building of houses, there is an inexhaustible supply of stone strewn over the fissured limestone surface. The walls were made of a double line of uncut stones. In the cavity were piled small pebbles and damp earth. In most cases, stones were not used for the upper walls, and the buildings made shaft, earth shaped and mounded bricks and then dried in the sun. The roof consisted of reed canes supported by beams and covered with a layer of earth. The floor was simply of beaten earth, sometimes coated with lime, with a flat stone placed here or there to support an upright. Thanks for bearing with me. Even as I'm reading this, it just sounds to me like we're not. It's like they're telling us they're doing their best at this atlas. Let's see if I can. They're doing their best. Good grief. At this atlas, yet. So, when the cluster of such houses, and so this is interesting because I relate this to several things. I relate these next couple paragraphs, to what has happened in the Americas to the indigenous people and to the people that were already here, and then the whole entire story. Like, these are Palestinian landscapes that they're talking about, and then I find a unique connection. Let me just say that without saying too much. Okay. So they're talking about these buildings, and the way that they describe that sounds to me like some of the places they've found scattered throughout the United States. But if this is so much older, wouldn't they be building with, I feel like there would have been more sophisticated buildings, especially if we're going off of the stories written from the Civil Bible. Okay? All right. When a cluster of such houses was ravaged by pestilence, famine, or war, usually by a combination of all three, this part I kind of relate to Tartaria. I'll continue. And emptied of its inhabitants, only the lower part of the walls remained standing. And even that disappeared beneath canes and earth from the roof. Beneath the clay and the stones and the half-charred beams, if a later generation, attracted by the favorable position, reoccupied the site and built houses on it using the same technique as their ancestors, they erected them upon a mass of earth and stones leveled by wind and time. They were glad to make use of portions of wall protruding here and there. The beaten earth floor of the new houses then lay only a foot or two above the earlier floor. In the course of centuries, this process was repeated several times, and ultimately many towns were literally heaped one on top of the other. If a site remained uninhabited after devastation, it retained the appearance of an artificial hill. Is that a mound? In the ancient Semitic languages, it was called a tell, a word still used today. You mean like telling us the truth? Why do they call it a tell? I'll have to look that up. I did look up these other words. If traces of a wall are visible, the Arabs also use the term shirib, which is found with a slight differences of vowels in the Bible. Is that like cherub? Cherubim? We adopt the normal transcription of this term, kiribeth, before proper name, kiribet. So they changed the CH to a KH sound, probably. And if you look up the word cherub in Latin, because I couldn't find it in Arabic, and that might be something that has changed over time, but it means wood in Latin, and then it means ruins in Arabic, and then it has become to mean cherubim, like a small angel, which I just find interesting. Okay. Without continuing reading, because it's interesting, because this is supposed to be describing the technique of biblical geography, when what it sounds like they're telling us is that they don't really know, and they're kind of and they're kind of I don't know. It doesn't sound, it sounds like they're basically telling us they did the best they could with this, and that there might be a possibility of creating these creating this geography to be able to put a place to a name, but they're actually saying they're not for sure if this is the same place, and if it is the same place, how many people have come here before. And then the way they're describing it to me sounds like there's a whole history that is also not just, it's not being applied to this story. I don't know. Okay, so I'm gonna read the parts. I'm gonna reiterate the parts that I noticed. they mention the name Tel several times. That there are towns and villages that have different names now. For example, Hama, which used to have the name Tel El Hasson, and that other places like Jericho had a different name, and that it is often to hear the name Tel and then the name after it, which would mean like Tel of the Sultan. Tel Sultan is one of the names, and that's in Arabic. Other names that have been forgotten and have been replaced centuries by new ones. We have Arabic names replacing names in Palestine. And then we have names of places that are named after animals, colors, and shapes, where they lived, or a memory. Some are named after people. It literally says, in these cases, all information about the former name is lacking, and the archaeologist and the geographer must then look elsewhere for their evidence for identification. And then the geographer possesses, on the one hand, an impressive list of biblical towns and villages, which he must locate as accurately as he can, and on the other, a very detailed map of present-day Palestine, in which during the period of the Mandate, British surveyors carefully marked the majority of the mounds. All before this, they don't mention mounds. All before this, they do not mention mounds. But then in this paragraph, talk about how the British surveyors carefully marked the majority of the mounds and recorded in each case the name they had heard in use amongst the Arabs of the locality. Was that here? I'm telling you. I feel like this is literally telling us. It's not over there. It's over here. This is the true, like, old palace. This is like where everything came from. I don't want to disrespect the history of what is now called Palestine. Okay. Armed with these two kinds of information, so it's two kinds of information. One information is present day, and then part of the information is from a long time ago from the British. The geographer must endeavor to identify the towns, asking himself, what name in the Bible corresponds to this Tel? Aren't they literally kind of telling us how not only the Bible was written, but how this particular book was put together? Okay. And it says, the reply is far from easy, for Palestine is strewn with ruins, as the reader will appreciate if he looks at the map on page 105. So we go to page 105. And this is the map they're talking about. This map. This map. This map. So, I read a bunch of this too, and there's a lot of information to me that kind of shows that the Hellenistic time, that to me, this history that they're placing over there was here. One of these places, so Hebron here in this picture, so we'll just talk about it a little bit. So Hebron here is supposed to be the part where when the Israelites and I guess you would say the ones who were not Israelites were separating from each other. This was kind of where they would meet in Hebron. But also, if you look at this map, it somewhat looks like parts of Western America. And this would be, to me, Mexico, the top of Mexico. And this would be part of the Americas. Literally could almost be the Panama Canal. Okay. I know. And like, I wouldn't want somebody taking my research and being like, hey lady, you're way off. So, well, if my research had been misguided, I would want somebody to say, hey, did you look over here? But this was written, like I said before, if you don't know, this was written in the 50s. Let's see here. Wasn't it? I said that in one of my videos before, but I don't see. Where's the copyright? Where's the copyright date? Yeah, 1956. So, okay, I mentioned this because somewhere in our history, people gathered together to create history, to create stuff. So, is this one of the keys, or is this a link to the keys? Because I don't think that map is big enough. And when we look at what's, well, I'm not getting into that. We're not. I'm just relating it to some things that seem to link to here. Okay, so this is supposed to be a picture of 295. The reconstruction of Aconite Unger. I think it looks like South America. The temples in South America. But I haven't been to the Middle East. I haven't been to this part of the world. And I don't know if these are still standing. But also, that just reminds me. I've been watching like the X-Men type of movies again. And what you see, so when reviewing the history of Tartaria, or the time of Tartaria, since not everything was named quote-unquote Tartaria, but during the time of Tartaria, during the time of those incredibly built buildings that we can't mimic anymore, gosh darn it. Okay. So in the stories, what we'll hear is like something had been destroyed or it was in a fire. But what we're also seeing as they were literally destroyed. In some of the X-Men movies, what I'm noticing is they are destroying like historical buildings in these movies during wars and such like that. And then also, a lot of these Tartarian like buildings are in the background or part of the movies. Are these hints? I think these are hints. Okay, so I bring up the Atlas of the Bible also to kind of talk about the names of places. So in relation to the Sibyls, right? Because even in this, it talks about how places have been renamed. And we had mentioned before about where maybe an original Sibyl may have come from. this book right here is kind of giving me the impression that a lot of our information has been pieced together by people. This is what we're doing. That's what I'm doing. This is what a lot of the people are doing. I mean, they're finding stuff, and I'm going to keep doing reading. But, oh my gosh, like all the books I have, it's literally college forever. Okay. So, I said I want to... So we're going to do the Julian calendar also, because I wanted to talk about that. So we go 13 days back. And if we go 13 days back from today, that would put us on December 27th. We wouldn't even be in the new year yet. And this is where there's got to be a connection between 13 days minus Julian calendar. The quote unquote 12 days of Christmas. How even in some Orthodox Catholic practices, Christmas is still going on. These first few days in January are dedicated to Breed or Bright, also sometimes mistakenly called Bridget, but the Irish goddess, which I also thought was very interesting because today is a day to give to the women in Ireland. And our Gregorian calendar, and then Gematria. Excuse me. So that's interesting. And so if we go back 13 days in December would be the 27th, which equals 9. And then we come to today, which equals 6. What's up with that? Okay. So, few mentions. Now, I have the Goddess Companion, and then I wanted to talk a little bit about elementals, because I haven't spoken about elementals and being elemental and such in a while. During this winter season, what I've noticed with my own fire element is, and feel free to share stories, and we might have if you're up for it, if you've made it this far in the video, thank you so much. And if you're up for it, doing a live where we actually talk about each other's elemental gifts, or noticing what you've noticed, since you might have been watching videos about elemental gifts. Because the recent download I was given was emotions and elements are very connected. This is why so much control over our emotions when it comes to media and programming and the patterning of the people, or the spell. Because if you can control people's emotions, you actually have a connection to their elements, and those people are getting less aware of their elements because the emotions are being so filtered and influenced from the outside. So we know several things already about the elements when it comes to elements, which is, we have the basic 4. This has been around the world. We can break this down to the cross, to the swastika, to the way of the seasons, right? Now, did they trick us with that too? Because if we're being influenced by, this is why I mentioned it right after the calendar thing, because if the calendar is influencing us, in a vibration that we're being taught, but that it actually isn't the truth, then what is really going on? And then when we see it, where do we go with it? And anyways, so during this season, what I've noticed with my own fire element is with my phone, electricity wise, it will like stick. And if I focus and hold it, And what I've been doing is I've focused the energy that's in my hands through my fingertips to the phone, consciously correcting the glitch. And I'll feel it. I'll feel the phone kind of jump, and then it will work correctly. I've been practicing that with the computer, because also as a Reiki master, the remembering that you can Reiki everything. So I also will intend Reiki to the phone. And Reiki, the name itself, relates to the key, which is, chi, which is a fire type energy. Energy in general is a fire type energy, right? When we think of energy, okay. So also, I've been doing candles and burning, and we'll be able to feel the flame when it lights. Feel the flames when they're ready to be put out. Sometimes let the flames burn and watch it and be able to kind of direct the flames. I haven't done a fire, but if you did do a fire, if you are doing fires and you did do a Yule log, the Yule log is connected to the snake goddess, and then you're bringing in that fire energy, and you might have noticed some really interesting flames or some energy that happened if you've been practicing with your fire elemental during the winter season. Storms, lightning, and a few other ones that should come to me. Oh, turning lights on and off, and fixing and influencing electrical things. Have you noticed that? Okay. So this is from the Women's Myths and Secrets. So, real quick, because I've been on for a while, but I'll be doing more videos. You'll just see them. Elements. On each of the individual continents, the same 4 elements were distinguished. We have fire, earth, air, and water. And then we also have ether, right? Ether is related to thought and to the gods. Okay. So, just a few things. Indo-European traditions said the 4 elements were created by the Great Mother Kali. The goddess was adorned in scriptures. Old Mother Kanma, the great goddess, all relating to elements. The goddess was addressed in scriptures. Thou art earth, thou art water, thou art fire, thou art air, thou art the void, thou art consciousness itself, thou art life in this world, thou art the knowledge of self, thou art the supreme divinity. The ancient theory of the human body's elemental humors, adopted by the medical profession in the West up to the 19th century, was based on Kali's supposed distribution of elements in living forms. This is why this is all coming back, because we are elementals. We are elementals, and we are being called to play with, practice, and understand our elementals. And something else that came up recently is the more we practice, I'm going to use an example of somebody I talked to recently who is specifically a water sign, whose north node is a earth sign. So we learned that in their past life they were a straight up fire sign. They're born in this lifetime as a water sign. Their north node is earth. What are we seeing here? We're seeing somebody who mastered fire in their past life. They are a master of water in their present life while bringing in air and earth with their mastery of fire to bring balance. This person mentioned they have trouble with confrontation. I have trouble with setting boundaries. We can use these elements to help bring balance. So, of course, there might be some trouble with conflict for somebody who has mastered fire in their past life but is born a water sign in this lifetime. Sure. So the more they work with their fire and water connection, the more they will be able to bring balance into the emotional state of conflict. The message I got for myself is the more I create boundaries, because what have I mastered? I've mastered water. I've come in as air, and my north node purpose is water. Okay. I mastered earth in my last. This one is water. Then to bring in, sometimes water is a boundary, and sometimes water can push past boundaries. So if I can practice with my fire and electric elemental, I can further understand how to create boundaries with a water high element. Steam, dryness, floods, a barrier, a gate, a drain. So we can bring in elemental with emotional to find balance. Okay, I feel like that was a lot. And it's already pretty long, and I wanted to do the goddess companion. So today's goddess and the goddess companion is Hera. So, and in ancient Greece, this is a primordial goddess that was honored in three phases: as the maiden, as the young maiden, the woman in her prime, then as the queen, and then as her hermit. So she has the youth, the queen, and then the grandmother hermit. And today we are actually promoted to bring in the winter's ideas with rest, knowing that spring is coming. Without being calm, there is no way to actually fully embrace spring and bring in that energy. So yes, it is winter, and with Hera's light and in the goddess's primordial seasons, we are headed towards the light. Okay, thank you for watching. It's a little different video today. Didn't really go the way I planned it, but I found it interesting, and I wanted to share that part of the Atlas of the Bible with you all, and there'll be more to come. So a little sound before we go to the harmonica again. All right. I need to learn a song on this. I can play for you guys. I realized that the Eurythmics had a lot of harmonica in it, which is probably why I like them so much. Okay. Okay, a little dual sound there. All right, thanks for watching. See you next time.